Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. And when you see the eye patch, don't worry, my eye is okay. I just have an infection, it's swollen, and so to make it easier on me to be able to see, and so that you guys don't have to worry about seeing the big swollen eye, I am wearing an eye patch for now. It makes it a little bit easier to handle. And so I low-key feel like Thor in Ragnarok, a mixture of between that and then Fat Thor. Like, I'm not ripped, but I also don't have both eyes available either. So we did get far enough in the collection log that we are able to unlock our next mystery card. But before we do that, today should be the day that we hit the big milestone, the 1,000 subs. We were about 35 away at the time of recording this. And so I think beyond a reasonable doubt, we'll get there today, at the very latest tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for all of your support on this journey. And this is only the beginning. The channel is just getting started. I can't wait to see where it goes and then where we go as a community. With that being said, and before we pull our mystery card, today's hot location is Kamar Taj, so on-reveal abilities trigger twice. So what I'm hoping for from this pull is something like a Beast, or something like a Dracula, so that we can do like a discard deck, are the two that I have at the top of my mind. Let's go ahead and pull it and see what we get. So we get Sandman. So Sandman is a hit or miss. I've seen a lot of people say that he's terrible, that he's unusable. I also know that he is really good against swarm type decks. So if we are still seeing swarm type decks, or even if we're going up against like the death decks that we were seeing after our cheating death video, then Sandman really helps in that regard. And I think we can actually use our Psylocke that we pulled yesterday in combination with the Sandman card to ramp into him early. That way we really lock down the last half of the game. We can drop him on turn 3. And so turn 4, 5, and 6, they're only going to be able to drop one card, but so are we, so we want to make sure that those are high power, high quality cards so that we can outpower them no matter what they drop. I'm going to jump over and draft a deck and then we will be back. Alright, so we did put a deck together, and the idea behind this is that we want to ramp up with Psylocke on 2, drop Sandman on 3, and then my thinking was, what deck have we ran in the past where we wanted to play on curve for the last half of the game, where it pushed out a lot of power and it was really hard to counter. And so that's where I landed on the ongoing power disruption. So ideally, the ideal scenario, turn 2 we drop Psylocke, turn 3 Sandman, turn 4 Omega Red, turn 5 Iron Man, turn 6 Onslaught. So Omega Red is of course going to push out additional power. If you're ahead in that lane by 10, it's going to push an additional 4, but with Onslaught, it's going to make that +8 to all of the other lanes. And then Iron Man, of course, being that enabler to make sure we're winning by more than 10, or if it looks like they are abandoning that lane, we can always drop Claw, which is going to push 5 power to the right, and then if we couple that with Onslaught, that is +10. That way we can play our one card in one lane and get power in multiple lanes. That way we're going to be able to be competitive in more than one lane, even though both of us can only drop one card. And then Onslaught finishing out that combo with ongoing, double your ongoing effects at this location. So those are the key cards of this combo deck, but let's look at the other cards and what they're there for. So we have Jubilee. Jubilee, especially with the double on reveal hot location right now, Jubilee is going to give us an additional chance or additional chances to pull into our high power cards. So if we don't have Psylocke, we don't have Sandman, we have 2 more chances on turn 4 or turn 3 if we drop Psylocke to drop into it. And then additionally, with Psylocke and the double on reveal location right now, if we drop Psylocke on the double reveal location, we're going to get 2 additional mana that following turn. So on turn 3, we'll have 5 mana. So we'd be able to drop a Claw and Iron Man on turn 3, and then turn 4 follow up with our curve. So Omega Red, Claw, Onslaught to make a really big single lane. Or we could drop Iron Man on turn 3. On turn 4, we can naturally drop Sandman. Turn 5 and 6, we follow the curve like normal. And then that should help us really pump out that power, and I think that's going to be big enough that we outpower the opponent by quite a bit. And so then the last couple pieces of the deck. We have Sunspot coming in as our only 1-drop card. If we don't draw into any of our combo pieces, and let's say we have to skip the first 3 turns, he's going to kind of absorb some of that downside. And then we have Wave. So Wave is a similar card to Sandman, And the reason I have Wave in here is if we don't draw into our Sandman and we're running against the Zoos, we're running against decks that want to drop multiple cards towards the end, so even like a Mr. Negative deck. Wave is going to make sure that we counter that, and it's just an additional failsafe in case we don't draw into Sandman, in case Sandman is at the bottom of our deck. And then we have Maximus. So Maximus is a pretty high power 3-cost card, and so we can kind of use him to cover some of our other lanes. In our other lanes, let's say we get a Sandman on 3 and we don't really have anything great on 4, we can use Maximus to drop and push power out. Same thing with Crossbones. Crossbones is a really high power 4-cost card. He's on the higher end of that cost to power ratio. His downside is you can only play him at locations where you're winning. But if we ramp into our Psylocke, Sandman, we should be able to pretty easily be winning at least one of the locations so that we can drop Crossbones and get that additional upside. And then lastly, Chavez. Chavez comes in to make the rest of our draws more consistent. So this deck is operating under the assumption that we're going to draw into both Psylocke and Sandman pretty early. A way to help make that happen is to have America Chavez in your deck because you're not going to draw Chavez on turn 1. You're not going to draw it all the way up until turn 6. So it helps draw your combo pieces a little bit more consistently. And that is the general idea. Let's go ahead and jump in and enter Sandman. So our first game out, and we do not get to test out our deck. We actually get completely countered by District X. So we just have to play the cards that we get dealt. And so we draw into Thanos, which is a card I'm looking into having into like building an actual deck around. Of course, when you pull him from District X, you don't get the full upside because he generates stones if you have him in your deck at the start of the game. And so you can get some pretty good upside in some of these stones. And then if you drop all of them, you get an additional +10 power to Thanos. I think it'll be a pretty cool deck to play. But we do get the Kamar Taj, but we don't have any ongoing abilities that we want to utilize. And so he's now just destroying random cards. And unless you're going to completely mill somebody, Yondu is just very hit or miss, or if you're trying to target their Chavez off the top of their deck. So I'm going to drop Green Goblin into the District X lane. That way we get the upside on Angela, we send Green Goblin over, and I've never been brave enough to test out how it works at Kamar Taj. I don't know if it would bounce over and then bounce back because the on reveal triggers twice. I've just never been brave enough to try, and I don't think today is the day that we start. So they drop a Nakia, which is really, really big. Both of those cards they had in their opening hand, so they had a really solid opening hand. We draw into Onslaught as well. So I'm going to drop Crossbones just as a way to... if you're winning, win more. And then I think on turn 5, I'm going to drop Claw, and then turn 6, Onslaught. That way we can push some power into miniaturized lab before we're able to drop cards there. And so Crossbones being a really... Oh yeah, but I forgot. They have Nakia, so that's really tough. So they have Nakia, so all of their cards are really, really powerful with the +4 power to all of them. So pretty unfortunate that they had that in their opening hand, but I think we just kind of play it as is. We let it play out a little bit and see if it looks like we might win with the +10 power from our Claw Onslaught duo. And so here they drop, what do they drop? They drop a Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler is going to be able to bounce around wherever he wants to, but it's going to take 6 power out of here. So I think we might have a decent shot here. Let's go ahead and use ours. It looks a little bit cooler in the animation style. So let's go ahead and drop ours. That's going to make our power in the right lane +10. So if he shifts the Nightcrawler over, he's going to have to win or play cards into 2 locations. And at this point, I think he's played through most of the cards that he had naturally, which were these 3. So let's go ahead and lock that in. We may lose here. And he does opt to keep his Nightcrawler in mid. So we drop our Onslaught, which of course doubles that. So we do pull it out. He drops Odin to really just nail home the District X downside of having Spider-Woman. But just, oh, man, that District X and Weird World just are ones that you can never anticipate. You just have to play on your toes and try to do with what you can to kind of increase your upside. All right, so next up we have He Hate Me. So we don't draw into any of our combo pieces just yet, but nowhere is the first location, so our on reveal abilities won't trigger there. So that's going to be a good target for our Maximus to get some additional upside out of him. And then Hala is the second one. We have Omega Red. I think we probably end up just dropping Maximus over on the left-hand side, and then we have our on-curve pieces to drop in the following 3 turns. So we have Omega Red, we have Iron Man, we have Onslaught. And so it's just a matter of it's a matter of where do we drop them. Do we drop them here? If so, that risks the chance of it getting destroyed if they drop like Angela and several other sources. So I think what we do is we drop it here, and then we'll drop our Iron Man and our Onslaught in the following turns. Either that, or if it looks like we're really going to take this one by storm, we'll drop Claw and then Onslaught. Okay, and so they do drop a couple of cards in the left and right lane. So Okoye, so they're going to buff up their cards further. So pretty good upside for them. And then Blade is not going to discard cards because of the no reveal. So that's not bad. I think I'd feel more comfortable if we committed to Iron Man here versus Claw. So we could drop Iron Man here and see where they invest resources. Ideally, they would fall into like a pitfall and drop quite a few resources here this turn, trying to compete with our Omega Red so that we don't get that trigger. And then, of course, we just lay down a lot of power. But +8, I just don't think that's going to be enough to hold down the game. So they destroyed Killmonger and Swarm. So they do have a Swarm, and I didn't notice if it was a 3 or a 5 power Swarm. And so I think we've won this one by quite a bit. Do we ever not worry about dropping our Onslaught here and just go with our Chavez? Our Chavez would give us 14 power here, unless they get this one within. They'd still have to get 9 to 10 to make this lead with less than 10. So I think we just drop our Chavez here. They have 3 cards, 2 of which are Swarm. And even if it's a 5 power Swarm, that's 5-10. And then if it's a Chavez, I think if it's a Chavez, we lose, because they do 5-10 and then stack 1 more card here. Yep, so Swarm, Chavez. No, Swarm, Rock. Thank you, RNGesus, for you have blessed us today with a win that we should not have had. So next up we have Jay Parnell. And we don't draw into any of our pieces. I don't think we've even seen Sandman in our hand. And we've played about four games now. It's very, very unfortunate. I think we drop our Psylocke here. We hope that we draw into Sandman or Jubilee, but we didn't. So let's drop him mid. If we get Jubilee with New York on turn 6, we're going to be able to move cards into that location. So even if we drop a Jubilee into Kamartage, and let's say it pulls an Iron Man, we're going to be able to move that Iron Man out and over. And so what do you say we wave here? I think that's the play. I think we wave. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just drop Sunspot just to get him on the board. And then if we need to move him around, we can. And then if we draw into Sandman next turn, we can drop him. He seems like he would be a weak drop on turn 5. But if we need to drop him, we absolutely can. And so they get a double hood, which is going to give them 2 6-power demon cards in hand. So a pretty nice card for Kamartage. And it buffs up their bishop, their collector. So pretty nice card overall. So for turn 5, we could either drop a Claw, or we could try and pull into Sandman with this. What do we have in our deck still? We have 4 cards. In our deck, we still have Iron Man, we have Sandman, we have Chavez, and we have Crossbones. So 2 out of 4 of those are pretty good, and the other ones aren't terrible. I would like to drop our Claw here, or even the Onslaught to just have it out on the board, but I think dropping Jubilee will be a more strategic play with being able to shift cards around on turn 6. So So we do draw into Iron Man, so that's perfect for our Omega Red. And then we draw into Chavez as well. So wow. That's going to make some of our decisions a little bit tough. So they're going to be able to drop 612 power here for sure in their 2 demons. Do we ever just do that? I think that gives us enough to win this mid lane, because that's going to be 11 doubled, and then that double is going to double. So it's going to be, I think, 44, right? Or is it 38? Or is it 30, somewhere around 30? Upper 30s. I think that's enough to win us that lane. And then, of course, pushes power out onto the other sides. I think that's good. I don't think we need to do anything too fancy here. That leaves us with 13 power here. They would have to drop some pretty impressive resources. If they pull any of these out, same thing. Yeah, let's lock that in and see. Because Omega Red will get a little bit of upside. We'll get 8 upside in the other lanes if we can win it by more than 10. And so here comes 44. That's a large 44. So as long as they can't get over 34. Oh, and their demons are 10 powered because of Nakia. Oh boy. That's a incredibly large demon, but it is not going to be enough. It is enough to get them within 10, so kudos for that, but it's not enough because they didn't drop anything over into Kamartaj. So luckily enough, had they dropped their demon here instead, actually no, we still would have won. We would have won by 1. So either way, we had that with this particular play line. Maybe if they had dropped this here, nope, if they had dropped their strong guy here instead, it would have won. But very, very fortunate that it fell that way. The New York location came in absolutely critical in letting us set that up. But now let's go ahead and jump into a game and try to get Sandman out on the board. We haven't had him until turn 6 since we started playing this deck. I want to get that combo out and just really limit what they're able to do. Okay, so next up we have Bad Bab, and I'm tentatively excited because we do have Sandman in our opening hand. If we can draw Psylocke here. Psylocke? No. And then we get the waiting air. Okay, so it looks like we just barely missed turn 2. So I think, what do we think of dropping? Actually, no. Oh my gosh. Let's drop our Maximus here. So had we dropped our Psylocke, it would have given us 6 power going into the next turn, which we're going to want to drop Sandman anyways. So I think Maximus snuck into Dark Dimension is going to be the key. Okay, so turn 4, we finally get to do it. We finally get to drop our Sandman. It doesn't feel real. It's been like 5 games. And we still haven't got him out on turn 3. We haven't even seen him. All right, so they drop Iron Fist and then a dagger, which is going to push him over, or her over, and she's going to get the 1 card buff from, oh no, because it hasn't been revealed. Really? That's interesting. And then we have our Sandman, so they're not going to be able to drop very much at all. Just 1 card a turn. And we do have some upside in being able to like sneak out power with Claw or our Iron Man or our Onslaught. We're not able to do any of these cards this turn because of the Dream Dimension. So on turn 5, cards cost 1 more. But what we can do is drop out Jubilee, who's going to pull 2 cards into the board with her ability. And so they do have a Vulture, but they're going to be very, very limited. So I think at this point they're operating on using probably a Heimdall. And so Omega Red is going to give us +4 into all of our lanes. This being the final turn, do we want... No, okay. Okay, yeah, it was too much. Even if they had pushed cards over, it was just dropping 1 card at a time. It's just really, really difficult for a move style of deck. All right, so we don't draw into our combo. Maybe one of these days we will, but it does not look like today is that day, unfortunately. Can we draw? Okay, so we at least have Sandman here. We'll be able to drop Sandman on 4. We just don't have our Psylocke to ramp into him from turn 2. which is okay. I think we wait. I think we just pass. And then next turn, we're going to drop Sandman into Kunlun to make sure it doesn't get destroyed. And then the following turn, we'll be able to drop our Jubilee into Kamartaj. That way we pull in 2 cards and we can kind of see what we need to do or where we need to adjust. And so they now are going to realize that they can only drop 1 card a turn moving forward. So it makes it kind of tough on them. But let's go ahead and drop our Jubilee. Hopefully that'll pull into like an Iron Man or something similar. Most likely it'll pull into our Chavez, but they used one of their last 2 cards to drop a Nakia. Interesting. And so we do draw into our Chavez and our Iron Man. So how do we want to play? So we could drop this here, which is going to give 4 power. We could also drop this, which gives us 8 power here. I think we're okay in this lane unless they're running a Shang-Chi, in which case we lose regardless, right? Unless we dropped our claw. But I think we do this. I think we drop our crossbones here because we're winning this lane currently. And then what we do is we let our Sunspot buff up further. So even if they have like a 13 power Chavez that they drop here, I think we are far enough ahead that we win. And so it is that 1-to-1, and they have a Moon Girl. So they're going to duplicate some of their cards. It's just a matter of how many did they get to duplicate. And that's the limit of where they can be. Oh my gosh, that puts it in a tie for the left lane. The right lane, they are ahead by 17. The middle, we're ahead by 21. So we win by 4 power in that mid lane. Had they had 1 less card or 1 more that they could have duplicated, that would have swung in their favor here. Yeah, and then it would have won them the game. So very, very close. I do like Sandman. I know that most people say that he's kind of underwhelming, but if you can ramp into him, or if you can have your deck designed around pumping out a lot of power after you're limited to 1 card, I think he's pretty solid. You don't have to worry about double death decks or any like large. You don't have to worry about them dropping both a Lady Sif and a Ghost Rider in the same turn to pull in an Infinite. Just a lot of cool utility with Sandman. Hey, so a game where we finally have Sandman in our opening hand. If we can draw into Psylocke on this next card, then we can get him out early. But that's a very big if. I don't foresee that happening. But at least we have him in hand, so we'll be able to drop him this game instead of him being the bottom card of the deck. And so we have Kamartaj, we have Strange Academy here, and we have the waiting error. And so we got the waiting error, and we weren't able to play our Sunspot on the last turn like we would have wanted to. So pretty unfortunate. Do we ever drop Maximus here? Because he's already close to capping on cards. So drawing 4 cards, and if he drops 1 card here, then he's only able to draw 2, which is the normal effect. I think we're okay with that. So they do drop 1 card in Storm, and then we drop our 1 card that is Maximus. And so they do go back up to 7, but they don't draw here. So they actually only get 1 card out of the Maximus pool there. And so I think we actually have to forego our Sandman this turn, or this game. Actually, no, we don't. We have a way to push power over into this lane. And so I think what we do, we drop our Sandman. Turn 5, we drop our Claw. Turn 6, Onslaught. Will give us power over. It'll give us 10 power into the flooding location. They drop Juggernaut, so it would have gotten pushed out anyway. We had priority, so ours would have pulled. Jubilee would have pulled in first, but I think this is the safer play, in that we still limit them to only dropping 1 card a turn. And then even if they pass here and drop an Infinite on turn 6, we have this lane by 1, and then it'll give us this lane as a lead as well. And so they do drop a Jubilee, so they're going to get 2 cards here. Interesting. And so, okay, so I think we're okay. So they have to drop a card here this turn. They can't drop anything into the vault. And so what we can do is we can drop our Onslaught. Typically I would snap here, but no, I think it would cause them to run away. I want to let this one play out. we're going to drop our Onslaught. We probably lose Kamartage. We didn't need this snap. We would probably lose Kamartage or the Vault, depending on what they dropped, but probably not both. Oh, the dream is real. The dream is alive. So we have both our Psylocke and our Sandman in our opening hand. So if I was just playing by myself, I would snap here. But this has taken so long to get, and it's the same odds as getting the Psylocke with the Mr. Negative from our last deck, and we got that fairly often. It's not completely unheard of to have both of them in hand by turn 3. So they are going with a mill style deck. So they have Yondu, but they're quickly going to realize that they are not going to be able to drop cards for a whole lot longer. They'll be able to only drop one a turn. And with Sanctum Sanctorum, that actually works out largely in our favor. So they're stealing a couple of our cards, but I guess if they drew our Claw, that could be an issue, because then they would have 5 power that they can pump onto the board. At that point, it would be tough. Do we forego the extra mana here, the extra energy? Do we need it? Next turn we would be 4, and so we'd be able to do Omega Red. I don't think we do. I don't think we need it, and I don't want to clog this lane up unnecessarily, because we're going to need this location to be able to drop like our Omega Red, our Iron Man, our Onslaught, and they have an Akia and an Okoye, but that's the last turn they're going to be able to drop 2 cards in a turn. So their cards are going to be buffed up pretty large, but we have the Wombo combo. So we're going to be able to have 8 power that pumps out here. So even if they cabled our Claw and they drop it here, that's only 5 power they pump over there. And we're going to be able to, I think, pretty much guarantee that we're going to get our 8 across the board in these other 2 locations from Omega Red Onslaught. Let's snap back. So I wasn't going to snap, but they snapped because they feel confident. But I don't think they have it. I think we have it. I just don't think they know what we're running for the last half, which is designed to be according to curve. So that is all we're needing to do is follow curve. Now, if they have like a White Tiger, maybe, and they draw into Falcon, so they're doing like a mill style deck. But with only being able to drop 1 card a turn, that's pretty unfortunate for them. That's very, very unfortunate. And I think at this point they still have our Claw. Yep, they have our Claw, so it pushes 5 power over. But unless they also have their own Onslaught, then I just don't think they can make that happen. Now, could they have an Iron Man here? Maybe. If they have Iron Man here, theirs doubles, but ours quadruples because of Onslaught. So I think we have this hands down. I don't think there's any doubt that we have this. So they do have an Iron Man, but that makes theirs, what, like 22, 30? Ours is going to be like, what, 44 plus? And so because of our doubled, yes, sir. Because of our Onslaught, our Iron Man, our Omega Red combo, that's going to outpower the Claw that they stole from us anyways. And it's going to sneak us 8 cubes away. And we actually tied in the Superflow as well. So that is exactly what the deck is intended to do when it's running optimally. We've been having some bad luck drawing that kind of play line, but when it plays out, and the Sanctum Sanctorum could not have been a better location for us to draw into there. And so with that high note of a win, I am going to go ahead and end the video here. I think this deck has a lot of potential. It has a lot of limiting potential. So Wave, the downside I always felt with Wave is that you drop it, and then let's say they're running a large minion deck, they can then drop their Magneto, their Giganto, their whatever combo piece that otherwise is more difficult or they have to drop on turn 6, they can then sneak out early. And so usually you kind of, if they're running large cards, you don't really get the upside out of running it like you will with Sandman. So Sandman, that's not going to give them any additional tools to push out. They're just going to be able to push out whatever they have the mana for, and you're not discounting anything for them. So I do like this deck. I think this deck performs very, very well. We climbed about 2 or 3 ranks while waiting for this to come through, And so overall, it feels really, really solid. I'm going to be piloting this for a little bit longer, but maybe rotating between this, my Mr. Negative, and a few other decks that I have. I was a little hesitant with Sandman because everyone says he's very lackluster, he's very subpar. But with this deck designed around playing to curve after turn 4, I think it's a perfect fit. So whenever we ran the Power Dispersion deck before, we played one card on turn 4, 5, and 6 anyways, and so this just makes sure that they're limited to that same pattern so they don't get any additional upside. I hope you guys liked the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I am going to go ahead and end it here. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.